Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Crypto Hipsters Podcast, where I interview founders and co founders, entrepreneurs and artists, executives and stay at home hipsters in crypto and blockchain around the world. And I have an amazing podcast for you today. Let's get to it. And today we're in for a treat. I have a very special guest. My guest today is Jeremy Kauffman, who is the Chief Executive Officer and founder of both Odysee and LBRY. Welcome to the show.
It's great to be here with you.
It's great to have you. First, let's kick off and I'll ask you, what's your background and what inspired you to create both Odysee and LBRY?
So I have a formal background in computer science and physics, though I may be one of the less qualified people to do physics that have a physics degree at this point, because I haven't done it in more than a decade. I have an entrepreneurial background. I founded a software company prior to LBRY that grew to a decent size. I later sold that firm to private equity, and I was working at that company and working on that company when I started thinking, I started learning about blockchain. And I came at blockchain from the computer science perspective. And I've always been into sort of, freedom of information, the internet itself. I've been online since a very young age. And I couldn't stop thinking about this idea of, could we use a blockchain to maintain a register, a listing of information, of digital content, of things like videos and books that's not owned or controlled by any one party, that has that same property as Bitcoin, but for digital publishing. And that's something we say about LBRY, that, LBRY does to publishing what Bitcoin does to money. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. And when I can't stop thinking about something, I have to work on it. And here we are, 5 or 6 years later, with more than 20 million people using Odysee.com in a month, which has become sort of the most popular way to use to access the LBRY network. And everything's been going tremendously for us. LBRY's been getting more and more popular, and it's really become, in many ways, I think, the successor to YouTube.
Awesome. I polled the crypto community for some questions for you, because I know a lot of people are content creators. And one thing that came back was, how do different types of content creators, such as video creators and streamers, engage with LBRY, and how does it all work and what the resources are available to them?
Yeah, so how LBRY works can get technical and complicated, though I'm certainly happy to dig in as one of the people that helped invent and conceive of it. For sort of the more normal person, you don't need to understand all of the technical specifics. You can go to Odysee.com, Odysee.com, and hopefully people will follow your channel on that site, as well as many other channels from very popular YouTubers, very popular creators, some of which you may have kind of wondered where they went, because YouTube has become kind of hostile to the kind of independent content creation that once made it big. And so Odysee.com, the way that you'll use it, it's very simple to use. It's very easy to use. It doesn't come with a lot of those complexities that a lot of other blockchain stuff comes with. You don't have to use MetaMask. You don't have to use all of this kind of weird and tricky stuff. You can do those things, and I could talk about those if your audience is one that wants to know, how to be sort of, the hardcore, Bitcoin, a sovereigntist, or I don't know what the word would be, where you're having that, you're doing it all yourself. But for most people, if you're a content creator, and we also have a tool for content creators that makes it really easy to copy over all of their content. For most people, they use Odysee.com because they're tired of the bad policy, the exploitation, the inequities that are enforced by YouTube. And the blockchain and the open source technology behind it, called LBRY, that enables that, that's something that honestly 90% of people don't know about. And I'm happy to talk more about it, but I just wanted to be clear at the outset that, you know, as we talk about some of these complexities, you know, we're talking about, like, we're getting into how does a car work? How does an internal combustion engine function? What is the specific mechanism of a car? Well, you know, most people turn the key and they drive it, you know, and they don't understand all of those things. And so we've worked very hard to provide experiences that are really easy, that are really friendly, that you don't have to understand all of the complexities.
One of my questions came from the Litecoin community, and one of the ladies said, "Well, how do I hook up my streaming software?" That was her big
Yeah.
thing. How do we do that?
So live streaming is something that was just added to Odysee. It is not part of the decentralized library protocol. It's a feature of Odysee.com specifically. And it works similar to other live streaming where you're given we will have a go live. We're working on adding a go live functionality where you can do it from your phone or directly from your camera. But right now, the way it works is you're given a URL, and it's called an RMTP URL, which may sound technical, but if you're a streamer, you've probably seen that before. And then you can configure your software, whether it's OBS or whatever you're using. You put in that URL and you stream to that URL, and then you're live.
Seems simple enough. Sounds good. So the other question is the income structure. The income structure, the revenue model, how does that benefit your content creators?
So there's a lot of benefits for creators in terms of income versus the sort of status quo of YouTube. When you're getting tipped or supported by your users, we're not taking any cut. In fact, the design of LBRY is such that we can't even take a cut. You also earn on a view basis, and those earnings are typically a CPM that's comparable or higher than YouTube. You're paid in a cryptocurrency. It settles instantly, so you get it right away. And a lot of the minimums that exist on YouTube don't exist in this system.
Great. So with the, I'm thinking about currency, and I'm thinking about the IPO for, or the direct listing of Coinbase today. So when are you going to be on Coinbase or on more platform?
You know, that's a question for Coinbase. I can't tell you. You know, LBRY has become one of the most used blockchain-based systems, with more than 20 million people using it in the last month. And something that we haven't done as much as other blockchain companies is we haven't focused on, you know, hype. We focused on building something that people actually want to use and can touch and interact with and find enjoyable. And I believe that as long as we continue to sort of focus on that, on user experiences, on having a product that people really like, that everything else will come in time. I think some of these blockchain companies focus, you know, their entire focus is on hyping the token. And I don't see how that ultimately creates a compelling product. And I think that focusing, like, to me, financialization is something that comes over time, and the focus is on driving adoption and getting something that people can use. But we are looking at adding sort of first class swap features directly into the apps. For now, you have to use third-party exchanges to turn the token into Bitcoin or into dollars or euros or whatever your currency of preference is. But there's probably about a dozen places you can do that. Coinbase just isn't one of them.
So one of the things you just mentioned was network effect. And I had been looking at token prices and not really looking at the network effect, but it makes a huge difference because then it grows exponentially. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I don't want to speculate too much about the price of the token, but the I believe that too many blockchain companies are focusing on the wrong things. They're trying to create a bunch of hype and sort of either hoping or praying that that hype leads to something substantive, or they don't even care about ever delivering something substantive, and they're just trying to get some money and to cash out. I think that our company has a track record of sort of being the exact opposite. we've focused relentlessly on creating a product that people want to use, and said that in time, the price will be what the price will be. And I do think that tends to correlate with demand and usage, but that's not our goal. Our goal is to create a system that people really want to use. Our goal is to create software that's enjoyable. Our goal is to solve the problems and the exploitation that's currently going on, with the existing sort of big tech solutions.
So let's get into that exploitation. What are some of the top reasons people join LBRY? It's not price. It's just other than just investing, right? Um, as an alternative to YouTube's highly restrictive policies for some categories of content creators.
Yeah, I don't think you should do it as an investment. I think you should do it as for reasons of empowerment or the ability to get a larger revenue share than you're getting currently, or any number of reasons. And I'll talk about some of those. So one is that I'd say honestly the biggest is that like YouTube has become highly corporate. Like YouTube started as this place where it was about independent content creators, indie content creators, sort of people just making videos. YouTube has become much more like cable television, where they're amplifying the Stephen Colbert's, the Gordon Ramsays, like all of these content creators who are already established, and the independent voices are explicitly actually being diminished on the platform. And so I'd say that's one of the biggest reasons, is like people kind of want a YouTube that's closer to what YouTube was 5 or 10 years ago than what it is now. YouTube also takes more than 50% of every dollar earned, and so there are creators who don't want to give so much of that income to YouTube. There's also this sense that why do I want someone else peering over my shoulder? Why do I want to build up the success of this thing that I have no stake in, no say in? And when you're publishing to the LBRY network, you have much more control. You're not building on top of quicksand. There's not this ability for everything to be taken away from you because you misspoke, or not even misspoke. I mean, a lot of it's like AI algorithms now, and it's not even a human being. And so it's like, if you're simply uncomfortable with being, dominated and ruled by machines, and their AI algorithms, you might want to join something a little bit more human. And those are some of the reasons that people are coming on. Also on the user side, the fact that you don't have to watch as many ads, that all of your data isn't being sold, all of these things are reasons that people are joining.
So I'm going to ask you straight up, how do you censor your content creators, and what do you consider censorable content?
So this is a question that's sort of answered at two different layers. So on Odysee.com, we do have community guidelines. Those community guidelines, I think, are fairer and more inclusive than YouTube's are. But Odysee will, for example, will block or filter your content from being accessed. In other words, your content won't be available on the site if you're, encouraging violence, or you're being, you're encouraging certain types of hatred and this kind of thing. That's different from the LBRY technology itself, which is an open protocol that's closer to, Bitcoin or email or even the World Wide Web, where at the lowest level, there's not an ability to censor or control things. So in the sense that, in the same way that there's no one place to control the entire email network, there's no one place to control the entire Bitcoin network. This is also true of publishing on LBRY. But this isn't really different than the status quo. If people want to use LBRY to break the law, we're not going to facilitate that. We're going to discourage it. We even maintain blacklists of content that's known to be illegal to help people use the software in legal ways. And so, we have more than 10 million pieces of content on the network. There's, maybe there's a very, very small percentage of this content that has any kind that's violating copyright or things like this. And when that does happen, we put it on the blacklist, and most people, the vast majority of people, want to interact legally, and so they don't, they use the software in a way that lets them use it legally.
Great. So that makes sense. That's good. I see a lot of people. I'm connected to a lot of people on Twitter, and I see all the time people are complaining and that they got shut down by YouTube for no reason. They're not violent. They're just promoting or talking about their program, which is fine.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many examples of this. I mean, in the last year, we've seen YouTube delete Senate testimony. We've seen YouTube delete elected politicians and their ability to speak. We've seen YouTube delete journalists and journalistic content. I mean, one of the crazier ones, I think, is this Ford Fisher story, where Ford Fisher is he's a journalist who goes around and he just films events. So he goes to the various protests and the rallies, and all he does is take out his camera and film, and he's not even really providing commentary. If he's providing commentary, it's like, very factual, like just describing what's happening. He has a video that was used in the Trump impeachment hearings, that was used by the New York Times, that was used by CNN. YouTube refuses to let this video be published. The video is not allowed on YouTube. And the only way in which YouTube will allow the video is if Ford contextualizes it. That's the word they use. What that means is spin it. So simply providing footage of an event that was a major event in American history, that was a major political event, that was a major news event, YouTube has said live footage that is not commentated is not allowed. The only way this content can be allowed is if you tell people what to think about it. And so I think YouTube has just really gone off the rails.
That's don't you think? So let me see if I get this straight. That's kind of like borderline propaganda, right? Don't you think?
It's like, I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm in like a Pod People movie where it's like, how do more people not see this? Like, it's one of the most insane stances that I've ever seen a company take in like any context, to say that you can't provide live uncommented. And by the way, it's also not like there's not some, it's not footage where there's like people shouting racist things or people calling for violence or anything like this. It's like, it's just a portion of the events that went down at the Capitol on January 6th. And he's not allowed to share that, despite the footage being of major national significance. Again, used in the Trump impeachment trial, used by other major news companies who are happy to share the footage when they're doing the reporting. YouTube says you have to color this. You can't provide it without context. So I think it's dystopian, honestly.
I'm in awe. I know there's a lot of articles out there now that are more emotionally triggering under the guise of being academic. How does you see? Do you have your content creators on your site? Are they more academic or are they more like that? I'm just curious.
I mean, you'll find a wide range. You'll find we have a lot of academic and engineering and science type creators. There's a whole category on Odysee called Lab, where you can find, you're talking about creators like Veritasium and 3 Blue 1 Brown and Nile Red, and these are some of the most popular science creators on YouTube that are now publishing to the LBRY network. But you can find all kinds of stuff. You can, and it's not all like that. It's like YouTube a decade ago, where you're going to find everything. You're going to find all kinds of things. And we do see, I would say, particularly, we see that like a lot of younger creators, a lot of the people, like if PewDiePie were joining today, I don't think he'd join YouTube. I think he'd be joining Odysee. So there's all kinds of like weird and up and coming stuff that you'll find on Odysee that you wouldn't find on YouTube.
I could talk to you about this for hours, but I want to shift the gears because I think it's important. You're being sued by the Securities and Exchange Commission for selling crypto tokens in what many are calling yet another SEC overreach. What lessons are you learning from the SEC versus Ripple case that'll help you?
So yeah, this case is wild. I mean, they do say you're not catching flack unless you're over the target. And there's definitely something going on here because, well, there's sort of two interpretations. One is that there's something political about this, that, because we're not following the sort of big tech standards, that's something that the government doesn't like, because there has been this weird kind of fusion between the government and big tech and the corporate press that I think it's alarming to me, and I think it's alarming to many others. So there could be an aspect to this, right? The case has been open for 3 years, that they only chose to pursue it after, we were getting a ton of traction in response to some of the insane events of the last 6 months. The sort of other interpretation to me is simply that regulators are lazy. The SEC's position is that every cryptocurrency in the United States is a security. So they want every single blockchain token to be registered, to be tracked. If you want to give your friend $1, you got to fill out the right paperwork. It's not something that they want people to be able to freely build and to freely create. And we've been very honest. We've been very transparent about everything we do. The evidence in this case is things that they downloaded from our website that you can still download. They're not alleging fraud. They're not charging any individuals at the company. They're not charging anything criminal. And they're not, there's no victim. No one has alleged any harm. So, I think the SEC, sometimes government agencies suffer regulatory capture. It seems that the SEC may be suffering from this, where they're more interested in sort of protecting the status quo than, protecting the people that they're supposed to protect. And in our case, we made it very easy because we haven't attempted to hide anything. We haven't attempted to obscure anything. We've been one of the most transparent companies in the blockchain space. And I think it's possible that we're being punished for that.
I can see that. The attack vectors, there remain, like, still SEC has these attack vectors, it seems, against the industry. So where they are, coming up with stuff out of thin air, it appears, like, it seems. How do we mitigate these attack vectors, and how can we move crypto forward? Because you said, if you develop freely, don't you think that'll freely develop our ability to build our society and economic status again?
Yeah. So I also want to be clear that there's no risk to users of LBRY or Odysee. There's no chance that the network is going anywhere. There's no chance that that Odysee as a website will go away. This is about the SEC making my company's job harder, about causing us economic damage and reducing our ability to get investment money. It's not about, because it's not about, there's no existential risk. I want to be really clear about that. No one's cryptocurrency is at risk. No one's content is at risk, or anything like that. I think it's, what they're doing is really devastating to the United States. I don't know how much your audience will care about that, but I like a United States that's at the forefront of innovation, that's being, that wants to be a world leader. And right now, like this, so the SEC's suit, similar to the Ripple case, US exchanges are now less inclined to provide access to the token. But we lost one US exchange. In that same time period, we've added 3 Chinese exchanges. I think that's, I'm happy to work with the Chinese. I'm happy to work with anyone, but I think that's going to be disastrous for my country, because this technology is the future. Blockchain is one of the biggest innovations and most empowering technologies to be created in my lifetime. And the United States risks falling behind, and any country that attempts to regulate it too much risks falling behind. I don't think they'll ultimately win, because this is a technology that people really like, and every person who uses it and touches it tends to like it. And while there may be reasons for regulators to want to go after it, regulators are going to regulate. I think that ultimately too many people are going to like it for them to be able to crush it.
So I'm working in my basement, right? as
Yeah.
an entrepreneur. So instead of my garage basement, same thing, right? And I printed pictures of my books on the and I taped them on the wall. One of my books is Regeneration X, and it talks about SEC had to, in the past decade, handle the board of directors and executive comp sections that were buried in the Dodd-Frank Act, which they haven't done yet. They've done other things, like Sue LBRY. And what are your thoughts on if they embraced regulation, if they had open government here, if other countries had open governments? How do you see the expansion and adoption of crypto playing out over time?
So my preference would be, although I don't think I'll get my preference, would be that they do literally nothing. That absent people lying or defrauding people, that people be free to make their own choices about what they want to buy. I think it's more likely that they simply create clear regulation that allows companies like mine to continue to operate. This is actually very funny. Literally last night, Hester Pierce, who's one of the, I think, 5 commissioners on the Securities and Exchange Commission, posted documentation with her proposal for safe harbor laws for cryptocurrency. Now, LBRY would easily meet this standard. So, we're being sued by an agency where one of the 5 commissioners is trying to promote rules that would make that suit go away. So it's clear that there's some division even within the SEC in terms of how to handle this. I would like it all to be legal, like basically without restriction. I would settle for, simply clear rules that I can follow, where I'm not going to be spending $1 million as a startup, to attempt to comply with the law. And we've tried so hard to comply with the law. Nothing has really made me lose so much faith in my government and my country, which I really want to like, as this case. I mean, they've acted like the mafia. It's been really disgusting the way that these people have behaved, where they're like, it's like a shakedown. They threaten you to just waste your time, to run up costs. The behavior from this agency, I mean, I don't respect them at all, quite frankly, the way that they've behaved. And they've it was like they were certain that we were guilty from day one. They would just hop from thing to thing to thing. They would never give any consideration that it was even possible that we, were good guys and weren't deserving of this. So I do think the future is bright, though. Like, this is what blockchain enables is it really reduces the control that Wall Street and big tech can have over the average person. They're very empowering technologies. They're egalitarian, democratic technologies. And I think that ultimately blockchain will win because you can't really stop it. And people like it. So, I don't know what they can do.
So I'm going to ask you this because it just popped into my head and it's off script, but I'm going to say one word and get your thoughts on it. Altruism.
Sure. I mean, I'm for altruism. Who isn't? I guess maybe some minority of people are. I consume very little myself. I expect to give most of my earnings and money to charity one day. I already give a decent amount. I think that that's something that's, I think, like, wanting to help others is a fundamental part of most human beings' nature. I think another part of many human beings' nature is a desire to control others, and we see that with with the SEC. But I think that blockchain is a very pro-social technology that really does make the world a better place.
Yeah, me too. I agree. Um, well, I want to thank you for your time today. It's been a great conversation, very eye-opening and enlightening. And I just have one last question, and that is, how can people find out more information about you, about LBRY, about Odysee?
So the number one thing that people can do is go to odysee.com, create an account, follow your channel. Which channel? You have a couple. So which channel is this going up on Odysee?
Prior to the Irish Tech News podcast one I created, and it may also go up on Regeneration X because that's the name of my
Okay.
latest book.
So people need to follow you on Odysee. If they want to follow me, they can. My handle's KAUFFJ, but you should follow all of the different creators that you'll find that you'll like. There's going to be so many once you dig in. So just sign up, create an account. That's the number one thing you can do. The number two thing you can do is we do have a website about the case. It's helplbrysavecrypto.com. That has a bunch of details. It has a FAQ. You can read the complaint. There's a video. There's a petition. So if you wouldn't mind signing the petition, we would absolutely appreciate it if you sign that. And if you can share that website with others, that's fantastic. But really, it's about spreading what we've built. You know, we've grown to 20 million users with no advertising budget, with almost our entire staff being engineers. And the way that we've grown is because people try what we've built, they like it, and they tell others. So that's the number one thing I want to encourage.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks. It was great to be here.